Greetings. Welcome to the DragonCon Urban Fantasy Track Lost Girl Revisited Season 2 discussion. We are very excited, aren't we, folks, to be discussing this show tonight and this season in particular, which was the longest of them all. So lots to talk about, lots to go over. And we are going to begin with having introductions from my wonderful group of panelists. And we do have one other person who will be joining us, but was having technical difficulties. So we will just pop her in, and you've seen her many times before. So we will let Carol Stokes just join us as she is able. Sarah Rose, we'll start with you.
Hi, guys. I am Sarah Rose. I am a geek lover of all things urban fantasy. As Carol knows, I constantly am bugging her about urban fantasy stuff. Um, I am just really excited to be talking about season 2.
Thank you. Kevin.
Hello, everyone. Kevin Batchelder here. I am Carol's second in command in the Urban Fantasy Track, longtime DragonCon attendee and speaker, big Lost Girl fan, and looking forward to, as Carol said, talking about the longest season that we have. Not sure if it's the best, but definitely the longest.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about that at the end, right? Yeah, the season 5 discussion we'll go through, or maybe that'll be our competition this year: is pick a Lost Girl season and defend it. But I don't know. Maybe we might. Who knows? We might. That's actually had not occurred to me until this moment. So, see what these panels can do. They provide inspiration for me as well. Mm-hmm. Marks.
Yeah. Hey, I'm Mark Spile. I'm an author, filmmaker, and a podcaster, a co-host podcast Genretainment and SFP Now. And I didn't follow Lost Girl right away, but after a little while, I got into the show. Love urban fantasy, everything urban fantasy. I enjoy it. Enjoy writing it and watching it.
There you go. Yes, we talked about that last time, a little bit about the fact that some of us had watched it from the beginning. Now I watched it. Before I go into that, hi Renita.
Hi.
She is a long-time faithful, and we appreciate her so much. So thank you. And she comes to con too, so I get to see her there as well. One of the things we discussed last time was kind of how we found the show, and I think. Was there anybody else beside, and I know Kevin, you knew about it beforehand because of your connections at the Sci-Fi Channel. But I watched it when it started airing here, when it was in its second season in Canada. But it started airing here. I watched it from the beginning, and I believe that Mark, you and Sarah Rose both said that you had not seen it right away, right?
No, not right away.
No, I started about halfway through its run on TV.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. So some of us, it is one of those that once you see it, you're like, oh yeah, I can't stop. So, yeah. And I've enjoyed going back and watching some of these things, because it's been a while since I've watched all of the series. And we were very fortunate on the Urban Fantasy Track that over 4 separate cons, we had different cast members that came as guests, that we hosted them on our track at con. And at two of those 4 times, it was almost the whole cast. So the last time it was pretty much the whole cast, anybody who had a major role at all. So, it's been fun to go back and, watch some of the earlier stuff and doing it all in one piece like that. It's been interesting to me. I had done that once before, but I think it was before the show was over. So it wasn't all of it. And it was, several years ago now at this point. So my first question is the same first question I always have, and that is, what are one or two of your favorite episodes from the season, and why were they your favorite? And was there one that you just thought, I didn't really enjoy this one quite as much as the others, and just didn't do it for me. I didn't find it to be, essential to the rest of what was going on during the season. Sarah Rose.
Well, I guess I'll start with the second part first. The one I really did not like was season 2, episode 1. Something wicked this way comes.
Oh, really? Interesting. Okay.
I did not like it. I guess I always have an issue with like the carny vibe thing in any show or book. I don't particularly like that. I'm gonna be honest, the eating people thing. Again, there's not much more than that can gross me out. So
Okay.
that's a big thing for me.
This looked really bad. Can you just push that up behind me more?
I'm trying to.
I think my next favorite one, hold on, I'm going through the list because this is my favorite season, so it's hard for me to pick a favorite episode. I'm gonna be honest, I think it was Truth and Consequences was probably my favorite one.
As a wrenching episode, just wrenching.
It is wrenching. It makes you feel, and I think that's part of the reason why it's my favorite episode, because you just can't look away from that episode. Like it's just got so much. So I think that one is probably my favorite episode.
Okay. Kevin.
All right. It's tough to pick one I really didn't like, having such a passion for most all of them. I mean,
right.
Not a huge
you don't
fan.
have to pick one you didn't like. You don't have to not like one. Yeah.
Well, let's just say down the list quite a bit would probably be 208, Death Becomes Him, with Bo going all dark succubus there. I don't know. Not at that point in the season. I don't know. It just kind of didn't flow as well for me as some other episodes there. I mean, as far as ones I like, there are several in this season. If we try to trim it down to just two, early on, I think episode 4, Mira Mira, the Baba Yaga one.
Oh yeah.
Strong.
That's another one I don't. Again, eating people.
Very much loving the Bo saving Kenzie, and a good bonding episode there. So that one I enjoy that, because anyone who's listened to me talk about Lost Girl at all knows how much I love their sisterly relationship. And maybe towards the end of the season, episode 19, Truth and Consequences, when Bo is telling Kenzie, she's the sister she never had, and all the other stuff, the tough stuff, Kenzie breaking it off with Nate, and Bo having to kill Nadia. I mean, there's a lot going on in that one in a good way.
A lot in a good way. Yeah. Okay. Marks.
Yeah, I second a lot of that, especially the Baba Yaga or Baba Yaga. That's a character I always like from folklore, so I'm always enjoy whenever she shows up in anything, like in Hellboy and other lore or other shows nowadays. And that's one of the ones I'm like, Baba Yaga. I never heard it pronounced that way, and I realized, oh, okay, that's more legit. Okay, that's the Russian Slavic. Okay, I get you.
That's right. Yeah, there you go.
But also, I remember especially I enjoyed it this time too, but I especially enjoyed it the first time around, was Original Skin. I always love those body jumping episodes. And just Dyson being Kinsey is hilarious. So
that's another really good one.
Yeah.
I the only thing I'm like, gosh, so this guy body jumped around and used this, the blood of his therapist, a Gorgon, I guess. But they never said what kind of fae he was. And I'm just like, what was he? Maybe he'll come back. I don't know. I haven't watched all the episodes. So.
Well, apparently the reason he used her blood is because he was the body jumper, but she was the one that made so that you could actually, she could see through the eyes or feel what what the people were feeling when she was talking to them, and so that intensified whatever.
Okay.
That was that. So, but you're right. They never did say, well, what was what they didn't give his particular type of fae a name. So
Yeah. Yeah, part of the fun, I always like waiting whenever they mention what kind of fae it is. Now I look up the lore and stuff because they have a few that are not as common. They don't run into as much.
Right.
Them are gods. They're turned into species like Loki and others, and Kiara's type of fae. But yeah, that was. I think there's a lot of really good ones in here because there's a lot of mythology going on. Just like a lot of the other ones you guys mentioned, and I can't really pick one I really disliked a lot. I guess the high school one because I just don't like high school.
Too many bad memories. Is that it?
I don't
did not
disagree with
have
you.
Any teachers. I did not have any teachers that looked like Boa. That's all I'm going to say.
We didn't have any
My
counselors
sixth
that
grade
looked like
teacher, actually, now that I think about it, kind of looked like Bo. Now that I think about it.
Yeah, that is pretty funny.
Dark hair, dark eyes, like,
Hmm.
didn't dress
Yeah,
like
see-
Bo, though.
Yeah, when they were trying to decide who was going to do what in that scenario, when they were going to go undercover, and she says something to Dyson because he's like, well, I certainly can't go and fit in. And she said, what, are you kidding, with those puppy dog eyes and all that? It was pretty cute. But anyway, Carol, thank you for joining us. We're glad to
Yes.
see you. And
Thank you.
and so what can you pick one or two of your favorite episodes from the season, and if there was one that you just didn't feel it quite as much, you didn't feel as though it was quite as important to the narrative of the season.
Mhm. Well, I absolutely loved Original Skin. That was just so beautifully done, and they all must have just had such a blast.
You could tell they were having a lot of
And
fun
that's
pretending to be each other.
Sometimes they got to be like 2 or 3 people. I mean, it was just, and it was really well done, and all of them served a purpose. Like, all of these things helped us get insights into them and helped them get insights into each other. So it wasn't even just like, we're just doing this for ha-has. Not that the ha-has weren't there, because they were, but
Right.
it all had reason behind it too, and so that really made it extra good. It wasn't just fluff. I also, certainly, yeah, I liked Truth or Consequences. I liked I mean, a lot of them were good. I mean, I did have some iffy ones.
Well, give
I
us
kind
a
of liked the Selkie one. I kind of liked the Selkie one because I liked the Selkies kind of getting their power back, and getting their votes back and everything. So I kind of liked that. I mean, I did like that. I didn't kind of like it, but I did like it. I didn't care for Raging Fae. Like, I just wasn't into the Fight Club thing, and the gross frog sweat that made the guy super strong.
right, yeah.
That was not a big one. I didn't care for Death Didn't Become Him, because the lick, as my notes say it, the lick, ick.
Yeah,
So,
he was a bit unappealing, but I will say now, yeah, and that's something that Sarah Rose mentioned too, as being the one that she didn't care for. But one thing about that one, I think that was you, or was that Kevin? That was Kevin.
I was Kevin.
Okay, and the one, and I agree with you about why you didn't, Kevin, but at the same time, I thought it was very interesting that the backstory of that type of fae, that this particular character, that was how he managed to live. So I found that aspect of it pretty fascinating.
I also
go ahead.
I also enjoyed 220, Lachlan's Gambit. You know,
Mhm.
I feel like
Yeah.
we've been seeing, you know, all through this season, we've seen from the initial perception of him as it slowly changed, and here we kind of got that final snapshot of him, and uh, and the same thing with Kiara, you know, because really, in some ways, we didn't like her a lot in the beginning, or at least I didn't. Um, I didn't like that episode with the whole, and I should have, but I didn't like the whole episode where we're back and we see Dyson with his pack, and the pack brother arrives in current day, and all of that. I was just kind of like, ho hum. Like, I liked knowing, you know, it was interesting to learn why Dyson left, but I just feel like it went kind of on and on more than it needed to. It could have been done a lot quicker. And
I
I
think
couldn't
that episode meant to give Dyson though his own episode. That's what I think
absolutely.
it served as,
Absolutely. Oh,
like,
yeah. No, I'm
character
not
growth
saying
for
it didn't serve
Dyson.
a purpose even. I just didn't care for it.
Right.
No, I agree with you.
Yeah, the
And
backstory
we
aspect. Yeah.
can't help resenting Kiara because in our eyes, she's standing between Bo and Dyson. And at that point, in the very beginning, we still want Bo to be with Dyson. And we haven't fully understood what is happening with the Norn and everything. So from Bo's viewpoint, and so all she / we know is he's with her, and she's like, why is he with her and not with me? And then in the end, here we are that we really like Kiara. Bo really likes Kiara, and we see her die the hero's death. You know,
Yeah,
and
we're
so
going to talk more about Kiara later. I will tell
yeah,
you.
but that was a really good episode.
Yeah. So yeah, she did take a bit of a, you know, she had an evolution. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, yeah. And
I-
even if it wasn't her character, at least it was in our perception of her.
Mhm.
You know, like she might have just been marching right along, but the way we saw her is what revolved. That's my little visual aid.
I do
Well,
want to say something about Death Didn't Become Him. The episode in and of itself, again, it isn't my favorite, but I do like that it finally starts. It's really that start of that second arc that we get in season 2. Like, season 2 really feels like almost 2 seasons, really. I mean, you got the beginning that feels like season 1, and then you got season 2, and Death Doesn't Become Him. You know, at the end we get this nail, and that starts the first big mystery of the season, and for that reason I do like that part of it. um you know, not being the biggest Lauren and Bo fan in the world, especially at this point in the series, um I did like that was part of it, and like the end, hopefully, of Lauren using Bo. The start of it, at
well,
least.
stay tuned. Now,
I know.
Renita here tells us that she liked the Baba Yaga as well. So yeah, that one was it was funny in many ways, and yet it was scary and of course kind of gross. Going back to
The
that
eating people
the whole
thing.
thing.
I'm
So
sorry. It's the one thing that will gross me out of anything.
well, in the very first episode, when of this season, the Sluya, the wandering fae, the carny, the carnival, people hiding in the carnival or whatever. We know that that their whole purpose is that they're trying to find a new home, that they're trying to, because they're outcasts, they want to find a new place. And at the end of that episode, when Bo is fighting that leader guy, keeping him from essentially raping the land, let's put it that way. She tells him, and this is a quote: this one is spoken for, this one is mine. And she's talking about that, that area, that part of Toronto is her home. And she says, or when she says that, I think it's very forceful when you hear it at that time, but I think it also kind of sets the tone for the rest of the season. And I wonder if you guys agree, can you think of another example where you see her actually, showing that same attitude or demonstrating that attitude in the rest of the season or other events? Kevin, you get to go first.
I really don't have a good answer there, because for me, without going too far down a rabbit hole, I think season 2 suffers quite a bit from the fact the writers had to come up with 22 episodes worth of content. And it really, at least I love the show. Everybody knows that who's heard me talk, but
yeah. Actually, that's how Kevin and I first met, was because he got in touch with me when I became a director and said, "Hey, I heard you guys are covering Lost Girl." Anyway.
Well, absolutely. I've talking on Lost Girl panels across multiple tracks at DragonCon. Yes. No, because it seemed like it was a little more of the older style television, that had 22 episode seasons. We have to pad it with relationships that break up. We don't know why this person's having a relationship, but it fills time. And so I felt very disjointed with what character arc or journey Bo was going on. So it's a great question, Carol, but I don't think I have a good answer, because I don't really see it that way. This season for me was a little more of jumping from story to story without a lot of continuity happening for me.
Okay. Marks.
I mean, I think what Sarah said earlier about it kind of feels like 2 seasons. I think it does a little bit, especially when I went back and looked at these synopses. The first, what was it, 6 or 7 episodes? Mm-hmm. They do feel a lot more like solo episodes, standalone episodes in a way. Kind of like some of the episodes in season 1, and then I feel like after that they start to find a groove and figure out what they want to do with. I mean, they probably already knew, of course, but what they want to do with the new Ash and how the Garuda and everything. We start building that, and I feel like it builds momentum from there. I think with what you said, with that attitude or that thought of her, is that like this is her territory, or these are her people she's going to protect or whatever. I think she did that a little bit, but also it probably, like with the same episode with the lick, whenever she pushed back and went kind of Dark Phoenix-y for half a second.
Yeah.
I think I see that a little bit there, and one of the cool things about the season too, in a way, they do have them all do like different things, and that does divide them for a while. Especially Dyson kind of gets separated from the group, goes all lone wolf and stuff. But I do like how they do burn them all together by the end, so they're tighter at the very end, and this is her found family that she's going to protect. So I don't know if that really answers your question.
It does. And even Kevin's did. I mean, that's how you guys feel about what you've watched, and what we're discussing is what it's all about. Yep. Carol.
I don't know so much about her having a lot of or more instances of claiming the land itself as hers, but certainly her people are hers. Right. And I think there's
her home,
ample. Yeah, there's a lot of, where it's like she stands up against the Ash for Lauren because Lauren is hers. And, of course, Kenzie is always hers. And so there's a lot of that. I mean, in a lesser degree, Hale. Hale's kind of more on the outskirts until the season progresses more. And then we start seeing more Hale. And it's clear that she feels that way about him too. Like when she goes to the Noble Fae and she's like, y'all don't understand, this is coming, and it's not going to happen, that Hale is part of her circle. And then of course it makes sense at the end as she gathers, they circle the wagons and and everything. And I think it's really interesting that there's the whole device of her blood uniting them. Talk about your blood oath.
Yeah.
A new level. But I do think she's very clearly territorial about her people and not having her people get hurt and protecting them. I do totally agree with Kevin that they're like, oh my God, we have a lot of episodes.
Yeah.
And that's where, we have a slightly greater incidence of not bad ones, but certainly not ones that are as fulfilling as at a consistent level as, say, season 1 was, or even like the final third of season 2 here really ramps up and hits a good level from that point on. Quite frankly, I totally had forgotten that this season had 22 episodes, and I'm like, la, 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 I'm on episode 12, I'm almost done. And I was like, oh my God.
Even close.
I'm going to be binging.
Yeah. So
So
thank
I
goodness January's a long month, right? So we could,
like, oh dear. And I
have
just
some-
looked and I'm like, oh, phew, the rest of them really are 13. So I didn't remember wrong. Just
well,
didn't
the
remember.
last one's 16, but yeah, the
But
other,
it's not
next
22. I
year,
was like,
but it's not
oh,
22.
dear.
Yeah. So,
But I
yeah.
do feel there was certainly some where they were like stretching it, or something that might have been part of an episode got turned into a whole episode, like maybe this thing with Dyson and hit the flashback to his pack. Or even something like, some of these were not the freshest things in terms of, the Fight Club thing. And we've kind of seen that before in the, frankly, the body jumping even, but it was so well done and so cleverly done and so well acted. I didn't care, the worm, that was going in people and affecting them. I'm like, okay.
Well, and I can tell you that that's always one that people ask the cast about at
The worm?
Prime.
Oh,
Yeah, about that particular episode. Yeah. And
no.
so which is great for the people who were in it, but if it's a cast member who wasn't in that episode, they're kind of like, oh. So Sarah Rose, what about you? Do you have any other examples?
Well, I don't know about Bo claiming people, but like and Raging Faye, she's about to split again. Like, I think it's Raging Faye, right? Yeah, it is, because when her old boyfriend's sister comes back, that's
No,
Raging
that's
Faye.
the mermaid or the Selkie episode, I'm pretty sure.
No,
it's not.
When the boyfriend's sister comes back as Raging Faye.
Yeah, it's Raging Faye. Because she helps the little boy. Yeah, now it's all coming back to me now. It's a little earlier in the season. She is claimed by Kenzie again, and in some ways even like claimed by Hale, and claimed by Dyson, because they're all helping her. They have no reason, especially Hale has no reason to help her with her boyfriend's sister's issue.
Right.
Okay, like he, up until that point, Hale and her really had no relationship beyond the fact that she was Dyson's ex, and that they had worked together to a degree. So I think that, when she's about to run away again because she's scared of her past following her again, her friends rally around and they claim her, and they're like, you're our friend and we're going to help you because you're my friend. And that then solidifies her stance in saying, yeah, no, this is mine. This isn't something I'm willing to give up because I made a mistake and I hurt somebody. So I guess that's my answer to that.
Okay. Now, a few of you have mentioned some of the new characters that popped in this season. And, well, Vex was not new, because we did see him a couple of times in season 1, but he had more of a role this time. And, they were certainly, in the last couple of episodes, his role was more, was more significant than it had been early on. But if you've got new characters, we've got Nate for one, we've got Ryan, we've Vex that I mentioned, and Kiara. Now, if pick one of those people, and what do you feel that particular character brought to the show as a whole? And did they, in the context of this season anyway, and did you enjoy it? Did you think it was lacking? But even if they had a negative impact, they may have had what you consider to be a big impact. But just pick one. And Marks, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I think Ryan was my favorite. I like the character in a way. I wouldn't mind him popping up again and again. But he's good. Plays a similar mentality or kind of character in Dark Matter, right? In their TV show.
Yeah, it was a good show. Yeah.
Yeah. So I liked him. I liked kind of different vibe he brought, and I liked how it brought up, like, she says she's not picked a side, but yeah, she hangs out with Light Fae all the time.
Right.
So it was interesting for her to interact with Fae a little more, and then kind of see that side. And he's not, completely bad, but he is, kind of selfish and stuff, and you could see in a way like she could influence him a little bit, but then he's also very bad influence on her, and we see her get very bad influence, and we see her getting kind of pulled to Dark Fae, which is an important part because she's going to go have to fight becoming Dark Phoenix at the end, right? So I guess that's a theme that we're playing around with in this season. So I liked Ryan. I thought he added something a little different. Also added some character growth for Bo, and also the marriage thing was pretty funny.
Yeah, and he did give her a prom, so there.
Yeah, well, he would be really selfish, but then he would do something really nice for her,
right.
And then but he was definitely a bad influence.
Okay, Carol.
I do agree that he was good at the big romantic gesture kind of thing. I'm not sure he would have been there, through all the lows and stuff, but he could.
Team Dyson all the way.
Yeah. I really liked Kiara. In the very beginning, she's just a character from the past, and clearly means a lot to Dyson. But as we go through the season, and she certainly seems to catch up to present day really quickly. I mean, we didn't see her struggling with much of that. I was kind of like, okay, she's down with present day. Okay.
Well, she was married to the other guy. She was around the whole time.
Yeah.
She
was somebody's wife. I don't remember, like some billionaire. That's where she got all her money.
That's right. Okay.
Yeah.
So, because we are seeing her a little bit through Bo's eyes at first, we're kind of a little resentful, but she's always really nice. I mean, she's not snobby. She's not, lording it over anybody because she's incredibly wealthy. She's always kind to everybody. She's giving. She's, all she wants to do is make Dyson happy. So she's not exhibiting any of those negative behaviors that we might typically associate with a rich socialite, Fae. Even the Light Faes, like they're, have their own motives and stuff. And she seems to just be kind of very, very much on an even keel. And then as the season goes on, certainly we see her demonstrating a strength that I think in the beginning, we didn't realize she had. And not just, both physical strength and fighting skills, but just really an inner fortitude and an inner sense of integrity that, in fact, makes her a good match for Dyson, and as becoming an ally into their team and integrating into their team, despite the fact she's not the first one that Bo would have said is part of her found family, yet she becomes an integral part of it. And so I really liked that we saw this progression, and um, partly with her and her character, but partly in the way we perceive her, which I thought was cleverly done. That it's not so much she was bad and became good, because she was good. She wasn't bad to begin with, but we came to appreciate her so much more. And even Bo was like, I can't even resent her anymore, because, like, what am I
She's too
resenting?
nice.
She's like bending over backwards and all this stuff. So I thought she added a lot. She gave Dyson a real softness and a chance to show affection. He can't love, and of course that's what ultimately kills it between them, is he cannot love her. But in the dearth of his love, his ability to love, yet she gives him this softness and this approachability, and I think kind of reminds him of his, I want to say his humanity. He's not human, but of his humanity
Right, of
and
that
his
side,
sense
yeah.
of caring for people and stuff, that it would have been very easy for him to lose once he was cut adrift from Bo. Um, so I really liked that, and I really liked how she and Bo were finally interacting and looking at each other as peers, and not sisters on the level, of course, that Kenzie is, but nonetheless in a sisterhood.
Right, and they could
They
get
had these
along without
common,
the jealousy or whatever that they
right.
both initially felt. Yeah.
Exactly. So I really enjoyed her character. Um, she got to die the noble death, and I was sad to see her go. But somebody's got to die, or no one's going to buy the reality of this.
Right. Somebody's got to go. Sarah
Need
Rose, what
melody.
about you? Which one of those did?
Oh, I mean, I'm gonna be honest. I like, for me it's Ryan, but touching on Kiara, I think that she helps Dyson find his ability of non-romantic love. Okay? Because that's always how I took his deal with the Norn, was that she took his ability to have romantic love. And Kiara was a big part of his history. I mean, they hinted at that he had feelings for her before, and so he was reminded again of that. I don't think that Dyson would have been hurting as much if he didn't have the ability to love at all. It's just he doesn't have the ability for romantic love, and I think that in and of itself helped Dyson heal. And in that way, I did like Kara. Um, for me, Ryan, I really like the character of Ryan. Yeah, he's the bad boy. Which, I mean, like, he's definitely the type of guy that I would have liked when I was in high school,
Right.
in college.
So that's
You know,
fits for
like
you.
yeah. I mean, let's be honest. He been kind of, especially towards the end, kind of manipulates Bo. Like, even like the prom and stuff like that. uh I'm gonna leave you, so I'm gonna make your prom. I want to leave you, but and he constantly convinces her not to leave him by making these grand gestures. um but then again isn't willing to make sacrifices, like he wasn't for the twins. And I don't remember the episode that was, but like where he ultimately sided with two people because they were dark fae. So in the end, that really tested his ability. um but I think he was good for Bo. I think that it helped her, you know, up until the her point with Ryan, which he makes that joke, "I'm your first, aren't I?" And she's
Right,
like,
right.
"What?"
Yeah, right.
Like, my first what? Like, you realize I'm a succubus, right? Like, but first Dark Fae, it helps her embrace like that neutrality, because up until that point, yeah, she was saying she was neutral, but as Mark said, she was completely light. Like up until that point, she was light. So, I think that is part of the thing. And I'm gonna be honest, I like Ryan. I wish he would have come around more. At the end, he whispers something in her ear, and you think they're kind of hinting that he's gonna play a bigger role, and nope, he just drops off the face of the earth. And so,
He probably got out of town. He got on one of those jets of his and
yeah, exactly.
took off.
Ran away with the bartender.
Yeah.
All right.
Kevin, what about you?
Well, for me, I think I'll take most of the folks we've already been talking about here and put them in the collective love interests panel, if you will. I mean,
Oh, there
we've
you
got
go.
to see
Yeah.
all of our leads basically have a partner to some degree.
Mhm.
And it for me, I think it was interesting because after falling in love with the show, certainly when you're watching season 1 and the team dynamic, the found family, and then we kind of get it, I wouldn't say broken up, but definitely to fill 22 episodes, they gave us lots of those wandering storylines for each of those character sets. And then for most of them, either physically killed them off or, like we said, they disappeared off the show. So I think those characters helped us to learn a little more about each of our main characters. And then by
Right.
the end of the season, when they all got at least back together to do stuff, for me anyway, it made me appreciate having them as a group back together more.
Yeah. That is a good point. And I keep thinking about the Truth and Consequences episode with Kenzie and Nate and her, and all of that. And that was pretty tough, because considering what Kenzie goes through to be who she is and do what she does, because of her dedication to Bo, for one thing, the fact that she had this chance, but she understood what the ramifications of that chance were. And she still, she made that choice, but that was, but it was cool to see her get that chance, even if she just didn't keep it in the end. Now here we have a point for Vex here from Renita. So, and yes, interesting is exactly a good way to put it. One of the things that cracked me up in I think it was in the finale, was the very, very first scene where he decides to fool with Kenzie and Bo. They were having a conversation, and all of a sudden Kenzie reaches out and slaps Bo, and she looks at her hand and she's like, and at first we're thinking, oh, is it something that happened to her when she went to the Norn, which we'll get to that too. But and then we find out that when Bo does the same thing, they're like, Vex. And he said, well, I'll just be over here not thinking about what gets left behind on a succubus's couch. And I just that just cracked me up. I was like, oh my God.
He also coined the term succubitch, which I really like.
Yeah. I thought,
Exactly.
was that him or was that the Morrigan? Because she uses it too. He may have
Thought
said
it was
when we first
him.
met her.
I think he uses it. Oh, maybe they both
May
use
have
it.
used it
It's
like
a Dark Fae thing.
Yeah, it's definitely them. So yeah. Now I still maintain at this point, and you'll find I probably won't change my mind about this for a while, is that the main relationship on this show, to me, is always has been and probably always will be Bo and Kenzie.
Hell yeah.
And when another thing that Kevin and I bonded over, and so aside from them, because we could talk about that relationship for 3 hours. I don't think any of us have that kind of time. Uh, not at this point in the evening. But the other relationships on the show between a lot of the other main characters have been growing and changing as well. And I'm wondering, is there one that you find particularly intriguing or interesting that that has grown and developed more this particular season? And let's see, that is Carol goes first.
I'm going to go with Kenzie and Dyson.
Hmm.
And we see a big change in their relationship. It's already started from the end of last season, where he's starting to view her not as a tag along or an inconvenience or something like that, where he's kind of like, why is Bo carting around this little human?
Right.
Where he's
No.
becoming to at least appreciate Kenzie's devotion and humor. But certainly during this season, we see a big deepening of that relationship. The whole body swapping thing really helps because they learn about each other in whole new ways. And that's kind of a turning point, but it's happening before then and it continues happening after that. And at the end, I mean, Kenzie's the one who goes back for him. I mean, we know that Bo can't. Bo has to go forward and fight the fight, but Kenzie, at enormous risk to herself, goes back for Dyson and hauls his sorry little butt, out of there. Kenzie has become really the little sister he's never had. He clearly is extremely fond of her, if not loves her, but not in any kind of belittling way, or he doesn't look down on her because she's human or anything. She's proved her mettle and he respects that. So part of it is his affection, but part of it is his respect. He listens to her and he knows that she is leading with her heart and that that's not to be ignored or taken lightly. And so if he just was fond of her, it could almost be that human as pet thing. But because of that respect, it takes on this whole new dimension that is so endearing and adorable, because she's so tiny. He's so
Yeah,
tall,
yeah, he's this big guy. Yeah. And
So
she's
I
really
really,
tiny. So
yeah, I really enjoyed seeing that relationship grow throughout the season.
Okay. Sarah Rose, what's your choice?
And just to clarify the question is about a particular two characters' relationship.
Yeah,
growing throughout the season.
some of the other characters in the show have their relationships have grown and changed a little bit between, even if it was just over the course of this season, but between last season and the end of this one, there have been some changes in other relationships. So
Sure.
I'm just curious, which one did you find most interesting?
Can I say maybe Kenzie and Lauren? Like, especially at the beginning, Kenzie never was on the Lauren camp in the first season. Like, did not like Lauren. But finally, like, Lauren and Kenzie kind of at least become not enemies, I guess. Like, Kenzie realizes that maybe Lauren legitimately at least cares something for Bo, though I still stand on the whole using Bo platform of me not liking Lauren as a character. Um, I'll also I'll definitely agree with Dyson and Kenzie as well. Like, for all the reasons you said, like, you finally, at the beginning, she's like, we're Team Dyson, and then he's jackass. And
Right,
then,
right. She
like,
gives her own, yeah.
yeah, and then she finally, like, once that romantic, like, trigger is out of Kenzie and Dyson, she finally gets to know Dyson and cares about Dyson. Obviously, the last episode, uh that changes things. But and it's going to change things for season 3. But I think she legitimately creates a bond with Dyson beyond just like that Wolfman succubus thing
Right.
that him and Bo had. So
Yeah, she even tells him, and I know that she says this, but I believe it was to him that she said that Bo's heart, it wasn't only Bo's heart that you broke when you left.
hmm
And that so they have to kind of get past that and come around again, I guess. Kevin, you got a different one for us?
Yeah, I mean, I would certainly agree with Carol that is probably the relationship, the whole Kenzie Dyson. But second to that for me would definitely be Bo and Trick. I think there's a lot
Yeah.
happening
that's
there
a big
between
one
those two,
too.
especially in this season as they're Bo's discovering, who he is to her, but then also just him discovering what Bo is capable of for the sake of the Fae and so forth. So I think that one goes through a lot of great growth here in season 2.
Okay. Marks?
I agree with Bo and Trick and Dyson and Kinsey, but also I would say like especially later on, maybe Kinsey and Hell, especially after the girl who fade with, I believe is the name of the episode. We get to learn more about Hell, and that developed their friendship a little bit more and possible relationship and stuff. I think that was at the very least it strengthened their friendship quite a bit, but also create some sparks there.
Yeah.
And everything with Laura and Boo. No, teasing.
We have a
Had to
number
work,
of
had to
people
work
that-
it in, Marks. Had to work
Had
it
to
in.
work it in. Had to work it in.
And if Jessica were here tonight, she would too. So.
We're gonna form the Lauren Haters Club. Like we're gonna make
Wow.
T-shirts and everything. Like
T-shirts, okay.
And I just want to mention too, when Kenzie is being Hale's pretend girlfriend, man, she was stunning.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
mhm.
And he
The dress.
noticed. He noticed.
He
Lauren,
noticed. I think it gave him, you're talking about how and I did have them like as a secondary one, the way their relationship develops. But I think he saw her in a whole new light. It wasn't just combat boots and lots of black leather and smoky eye makeup and stuff. She was elegant and self-possessed, and I think I think that's when he starts saying, oh, there's something different that could be happening here.
Mhm.
right.
Lauren
Well,
and Dyson too. Also, especially like that when they're sitting at the bar during Kiara's funeral. Like it comes on so subtly. Sometimes you don't like in the season you don't fix it, but like they finally were playing on the same side, like with the whole thing with the ash and then all of that, and just getting through it. Like, are you actually buying me a drink? Like,
right.
and so like I think that's another one that really developed maybe a little bit more subtly, but it this season grew a lot of relationships, a lot of stories.
They
Well,
were
and
both they were
I'm
both in the Dead Girlfriend Club.
oh, yeah.
Oh, I was
Well-
thinking it, but I wasn't going to say.
Oh, gee.
I felt your mark, so I said it for
All
both of us.
Well, and speaking of Kenzie and Hale, the in the finale, when she said something was hurting on her neck, and he was like, well, I can, use my song. And she said, if you could use your song, I forget how it was, but then he just said, how about I just do the usual or the regular stuff? So he starts rubbing her neck, and Vex is like, oh, come on, why don't you guys just do it now or whatever? And he's like, isn't anybody else seeing this? And the rest of them are kind of like, huh? And even Kenzie and Hale look surprised.
It felt very, very spiky.
I mean,
Spoiler warning. Spoiler.
yeah, and it's like, okay. I mean, we as viewers, we did, but I thought they did a nice job of kind of validating that for us, while at the same time showing that, the characters didn't necessarily see it. Now, Renita has a comment here about that when we were talking about Dyson and Kenzie, that he came to see her as a little sister. That is true. I agree with that.
And that moment where she's like, well, can't you sing my muscles to relax or whatever? And he says, no. Great little foreshadowing of when he does have to use his song to save her life.
Right.
We don't even know yet, but yeah.
Now, and this goes back to our original comment, or my original comment about Bo and Kenzie are the central relationship, and this is what Renita's response is, that they're the heart of the show and the family. And this was Kevin's response. And
you're a little biased, Kevin. I'm just gonna say.
I will admit it. All the evidence is there. I cannot deny it.
And there were, and to Renita's point here about that Kenzie was the one that kept all in the family grounded. She really kept them human. She did appeal to that side of them, because in this season, after at the end of the body swap thing, Dyson tells her, you're weak and you're pathetic and you need glasses, but you're probably the strongest person I've ever known. Because of that, because of all of those weaknesses, she still was who she was. And she, so she's had him telling her that. And, Hale has said some nice things about her as well, that he has come to respect her. And, so she does get her due. And I think that's a good point that Renita makes, that she is kind of, the focus of being their human side. They all present as human. So, I mean, they're trying to be part of human society. And anyway, we will move on.
Yeah, and Kenzie helped to get, Bo away from Ryan to kind of
That's
point out
true.
that he's not. Yeah. Otherwise, Bo probably would have enjoyed that for a little while longer.
He probably would have had a harder time.
Don't blame Bo. Just saying. Don't blame Bo at all.
Now and that's a good segue, because it's something that Ryan said, that when he was talking about the light versus the dark, and somebody mentioned this earlier, that when he tells Bo, he says, well, you say you're unaligned, but you hang out with the light. Those are the people you hang out with. And I think that this is what he's saying to her. And I think that really deep down, you feel as though the light are better than the dark, or that they're, that they're the good guys versus the bad guys kind of thing. And so that does bring up the question. We've seen some bad actors I don't mean the actors, I mean some people doing nefarious and bad things on both the light and the dark side. But do you agree with Ryan's assessment in how Bo sees things? Or do you think that that's an oversimplification of it? And Sarah Rose, we're back around to you for.
I think I do actually agree with Ryan in that. Bo, going back to that reaction of her saying, of him saying she's his first, or he's her first, and then her reaction when he tells her he's dark fae, that's not an overreaction. You know, Bo, as much as she talks about neutrality and things like that, and she is very light-sided. I mean, to the point where she was asked by the Ash to be his champion. Like, and you know, she contemplates it. It is an immediate no. Like, so I don't think that that's an oversimplification. I think that, you know, Bo is not, just by her nature of being a succubus, is not one or the other. Like, she's got darkness in her, as you said, the dark phoenix persona. Like that's very much a part of Bo, and like, she needs to find that darkness in her to in order to like truly be a good judge of character and stuff like that. So I don't think it was an oversimplification.
Okay. Kevin.
I think from a big picture point of view, it's interesting because I think it sets up, as we've seen in many worlds, you know, on shows and so forth, universes, you know, the whole idea of light versus dark. And as viewers, you know, I think anyway, you want to cheer for the good guys. You want to cheer for the light side. So it sets up a show well if that's where your character, who says they are neutral, has their beginnings. But we all know, as happens in life, there are temptations, there are things that happen where you justify what you're going to do and how it's going to be viewed. So I think it's a perfect way to remind us as viewers, hey, our show's just started. All you've seen is the good guys, so to speak. And now we're going to start to sprinkle in some more of the other side to see what it means. So I think they're setting us up a bit as viewers through the eyes of Bo to say, as Sarah said, you know, hey, I'm your first dark side. So I think that's pretty cool. And without getting spoilery, as we all know, come season 3, we're going to have another core character that's of the dark side that's going to bring a lot to Bo. So I don't think it's oversimplification. I think it's kind of setting the table for what's to come.
Okay. Marks.
Yeah, I agree. I think she's seen it that way for a while, and but really, they're both, when it comes to humans, they're both kind of crappy.
Yeah, that whole like slave thing. Like
Yeah.
they have that discussion with the Ash. Like
Exactly. Yeah.
they're not exactly good guys.
Yeah. It's like, or whenever Kinsey came there as Hale's girlfriend, they're like, human, and they're like, how dare you bring this trash here and stuff. So there's a lot of human, or a lot of issues going on there. So yeah, I do think, you know, she sees it that way, or has up to that point. But then Ryan at least showed her at least a little bit. Not that he's great or anything, or a perfect guy for sure, but at least he's not going around murdering humans.
Pretty,
though.
He is easy on the eyes. Yes.
So that shows a different side, at least, because if all you see is the Morrigan and Vex, you know, it's a very definitely not a good side for sure. Very straight
both of whom are very entertaining.
Oh, they're very entertaining.
But you know, they're both pretty ruthless too. So yeah.
Oh yeah, they're very
at least from what we've seen up till this point. For sure.
Yeah, for sure. So, but I like that, and it's very true to Fae lore. You know, the Fae, there's not good or bad Faes. They're just Faes that'll kill you, and there's Faes that'll, you know, mess with you, kind of deals.
They'll play with you until they finally kill you or let somebody else kill you.
So it's very true to Fae lore, and so I'm glad they did that. And I think and that's one of my favorite things of this season, is exploring the mythology of their world and kind of growing that world. Every time they introduce new Fae, plus the politics of it all, they don't just throw away, like the Glaive's daughter in that one episode. It could have been just a throwaway deal, but then they bring the Glaive back, and she's an important, you know, figure that Bo has to deal with. So I like all that aspect of it. So
now, this is to a point of something that was very close to what you just touched on, Mark, so that as for the Fae in general, the light and the dark are the same. I just feel that the dark don't feel like they need to hide their nature. So and I think in some ways that is, I mean, I would agree with that in some ways, in some points, but who was the guy, the Blackthorn? he had an interesting comment about that, but I'll save that until after we get to hear Carol's comment. So
I feel that there's a slight oversimplification in the beginning, because we are presented in the beginning with the only dark fae we see are, like you said, like Morgan and Vex, and they're like so over the top.
right.
So they're and the Morgan's assistant, who's like killing people because she had to give up her artistic talent and stuff. I mean, the dark fae we see are just like really out there. And the trick is that the light fae we're most involved with are very good. Dyson, Trick, these guys are really, Hale, are very human friendly. So they do embody the goodness that we, in the beginning, can easily associate the light fae with. It's when you do finally get out into the greater fae world, like the noble fae party, or various other situations where they're out amongst the fae at large, that you realize, oh, they don't like humans either. They're like, why did you bring your pet, or why did you bring the trash or anything? But it's easy for us in our small found family group to forget, at first not even realize it, and then when we do start realizing it, we're still kind of in this little bubble of human appreciation and human fond, being fond of their humans. So I think that's just like atypical, though, of the fae society at large. And it's Ryan is the first dark fae we see who appears to have more of those redeeming qualities that we were associating with the light fae. He seems very human tolerant. He doesn't mind Kenzie. He's doing good things. Of course, ultimately, he's doing good things that serve him.
Right.
That give him.
Well, and that's not only a specific fae quality either.
Exactly.
Right.
That's a very human thing,
So, that's why in the beginning, we don't even think that Ryan's dark fae. We're like Bo. We think maybe he's probably like, no, because Ryan, it serves his purpose to be the way he is. He's catching flies with honey instead of vinegar, but he is still catching those flies.
Right. He's definitely, yeah.
Yeah. So we start off in a much more kind of black and white scenario, light and dark. And as the season goes on, we really start getting into the gradation of grays, and the different, Hale's sister is like, ew, humans. But you know what? When the end comes, she's in there, fighting next to Kenzie.
Yeah, when they had to pair the two of them up, and you're thinking, "Oh my God, that doesn't doesn't sound like a good idea."
So, they're really good at showing how everybody's views are changing a little bit, and how those views are working from the outer society going inward. And that reminds us, there is no good and bad, exactly, that it's just lighter gray to darker gray, and where they fall in that scale.
Right.
There's no light without darkness, no darkness without light.
Well, and somebody pointed out that when, it's a way to see the introduction, of the dark fae characters that are going to become, it'll become more obvious as time goes on that they're more nuanced than just, they're the bad guys because they're dark. And so it's kind of an interesting situation that the writers and the showrunners have come up with. Speaking of, Well, I think one of the aspects of the show that I find most rewarding, one of the things that always appeals to me, is that being an urban fantasy fan, is that you can't have a good urban fantasy show without decent world building. You just can't. And if you don't provide that, it's just not as rewarding. At least to me, it isn't, and to a lot of people that I know. And that's just as true for media as it is for books and whatever else you could think of. But what I've always appreciated about this show is that they have done, and up to this point, we're still seeing this. And this, I think, this particular season, it was even deepened, is how well they merge the two aspects of the characters and their relationships and how those have developed, over the course of the series so far, with that world building aspect. I'm like Mark's when you're talking about the, all the different kinds of fae and stuff. And it's like, that's just fascinating. And yes, they got this one and you don't ever hear about this one, but this thing really exists. This has been written about before, that kind of reaction. And then something like, I know what Kevin's main interests are, and that's the relationships. And because if you had something that didn't have those in them, why would we care? And so but to me, I think that the show does a really good job of melding those two things together. And I wanted to get you guys' reactions. Do you agree with me? Do you think that one outshines the other? Do you think that one is the weak link? And at this point in the show, we've all seen the whole thing, but I'm just saying at this point in the series, how do you feel about that? And Kevin, you're first.
Well, and you touched on it, and it's something I certainly go to in all of these shows that I love, is that it is the relationships is the reason that I'm there.
Right.
They can be sitting around a table talking, or they can be fighting a creature with tentacles, or it can be a fae that, we've seen for many years and many different properties. So it can be interesting to see how the take is different here. But, and like you said, unless I, as a viewer, care about the characters, the people that are in front of me, the rest of it's just window dressing.
Right.
I can look at it and say, oh, that's interesting. Or I can look at a show, and I'm not bagging on anything, but there's a show on NBC called La Brea that has to do with time travel and dinosaurs and other things. And I think they've done a poor job of developing the characters. But, I'll watch along to look at a dinosaur stomp on somebody in 10,000 BC. I mean,
so you'll tune in every now and then.
I'll tune in every now and then.
For the Godzilla moments, basically,
Yeah. So no, a show can have some of that window dressing, as I call it, and not in a bad way. Some of that setup that's interesting, but I'm not going to keep coming back or care unless it's the characters. So for me, the characters are what kept me coming. Watching some of the fae develop and the universe is cool because it's not stagnant. That's what's also good. Right. There are some shows with great characters where it's like, we're not changing things. It's the same episode over and over. So yes, it's good to see it develop. And that's why I say, especially to this point in the show, to start getting dark side a little more, or dark fae a little more in there, and having our main character have to mentally debate how to do it. I think they're doing a good job, and it's only going to improve, I think, certainly. So it's good. I mean, it hooked me with the relationships, but it's got me coming back too, because I'm curious, like Marx has said, ooh, what's the new fae this week? Is it something I've even heard of? Or am I going to go running to an encyclopedia to look it up? Kudos to you as a show running and writing group to get me to do that.
Yeah. Marx.
Yeah, I agree. I really feel that the relationships of characters that's the first anchor. If you don't have that, I don't think it's going to last. Like La Brea. So might as well call it Lauren. No, I'm teasing. But yeah.
You hate Lauren.
But no, but do a really great job doing that, especially right out of the gate in season 1. And now I just like returning these characters over and over again of Bo and Dyson and Kinsey and all of them. But then I think they do a really good job, especially this season, fleshing out world building and stuff, really kind of, plucking stuff from lore, stuff that isn't as commonly seen, especially back then. And like Garuda, Naga, I think that interpretation is a little closer to from Buddhism of those types, their relationship with each other, and then pulling stuff from just all around the world, various stuff. I always find that really. It wouldn't matter if you didn't have good characters, so they have great characters, and then I like how they flesh it out, and I like how Morgan, Ash, now we've gone through 2 Ashes.
Yeah, we've already had 2. Yeah.
So we get nice politics and stuff, and new leadership and all that stuff happening, and I think they do a really good balance with that, better than some other shows out there.
Okay, Carol.
Relationships are key. I mean, I love me some good world building, and they do such a good job of it here that the 2 things are just in really good sync for me. But if it was just the world building and I didn't care, I wouldn't be in it, to the end. My favorite show to show that how when it doesn't work would be Lost. We started off Lost deeply caring about all these characters and the intrigue and what was the plane crash and what was Dharma and all this stuff. But as it went on, it like squandered all those relationships to the point where we're like, I don't give a shit.
So it's like, who is that? I know I saw you in season 3, but I don't know yet.
Yeah, and they would bring in somebody and you'd be like, oh, somebody new. I really care about that person. And it's like, okay, we'll just, it was a big waste, And so here they have the strong relationships, but they're not stagnant. All the people are changing and growing. Really, so for me, the closest good parallel is Buffy, where we have a core group. It's not so small that that it's all on 1 or 2 people, but it's not so big that it's diffuse to the point that we don't care anymore again. They all go through evolutions and changes, and their good points and their bad points and their ups and their downs. And this to me is the same kind of thing. We have our group, and they don't all do the smart thing or the right thing all the time, but we're always intrigued by them and caring about them and engaged with them. So having the good world building as well is just the icing on the cake.
Okay. And Sarah Rose.
Sarah Rose, a special guest. Merlin may pop in. My cat.
Okay. I think Merlin did last time too. That's fun.
Yeah, he's my baby. Anyway, he
Oh, there he is. Yeah. Hey,
Merlin. That's what I've been looking down at.
His ears are still like over the top of your name place. So it looks like your name thing has ears. Yeah, that's pretty good.
Anyway, so I guess what initially hooks me to this show was like the Fae of the Week type thing. Like I found that really interesting. I also really like the representation part of it on the queer community. That was another big thing that hooked me. But in the end, what keeps you coming back is absolutely the relationships and the story. I don't think that you could have a show just based on the Fae of the Week that would do it so well. I do like the Lost correlation, though. Lost, you kept thinking something was going to happen, and that's what ultimately kept people coming back. I stick with that, but like with Lost Girl, they do a very good job of like keeping you guessing. Like like the whole trick reveal at this show. You know, shows don't often surprise me. Good old ADHD brain tends to figure out story plots, and at least I thought exactly what both thought. This is my dad, and we find out later, no, no, not your dad, your granddad. Close, but no
Yeah,
cigar.
you're close, but not quite. Yeah.
And then you think, okay, well, it's in our blood, and like, so Trick is her dad, so that means she's going to be able to to write things with her blood, and then no, you know.
That's not the way it works.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly. So, I think that those are the kind of things that Lost Girl does really well, is that world building, that story building, the relationships, and keeping you caring about these relationships. Um, and Merlin has left the building. So,
Yeah, we saw the tail. Yeah, very,
uh,
very impressive. Yeah.
yes, yes. But in that regard, I think that that's everybody else did a very good job of making the point of, yes, it is absolutely the relationships.
Now, this is, and Renita is in agreement that I like good world building and lore, but it really is the relationships between the characters and the stories that hook me. And, as Kevin pointed out, that keep you coming back. You can find something interesting, but it doesn't necessarily mean you want to invest an hour of your time once a week, like back in the old days when we watched things that way. I still watch some things that way. I'm probably one of the only people I know of who still has Dish Network in addition to a few streaming services, but I
Nope.
digress.
I still have cable.
Okay, there you go. There you go. There are some things you can't get easily some other way. Now, for our last question, I do want to talk about our finale, about this season finale. It seemed to me as though the last 3, or in some ways maybe even 4 episodes, were kind of a 3 or 4 part finale, just with everything that came up. I guess I would say 3. That was my initial feeling, starting with Lachlan's Gambit and what happened with him. I felt as though that was kind of a start. But what did you like that? I mean, and kind of, I guess if we combine it a little bit with the overall story arc, with the Garuda, even though it was further on in the show before we even knew about the Garuda by name, but we knew something weird was going on because, Trick kept saying, people are acting strange, all these animals are going berserk and all this stuff. So it was kind of brought up a little beforehand. But how did you feel as though the finale kind of fit with the overall story arc of the season? Did you find it satisfying? And all I can say is, thank goodness we didn't get quite the same. We had a few things that were cliffhangers, but at least it wasn't as bad as it was for season 1. But anyway, so let's talk about that briefly. And Marks, it is your turn to go first.
Yeah, I liked it. I liked it overall. I liked how epic it was and stuff, and I liked how that a lot of the big beats in the story. I feel like episode 1 that stood out, episode 20, I think it felt like it was too much sometimes for them to handle because there's some technical issues in episode 20, like the whole guards pop in and then the Garuda's talking, and I was very confused. Like, these are the guards? What's going on? I was like, it was a really weird cut, and how they.
Oh did yeah.
I was really confused. So there's a few things, and I think that's and because they were trying to do so much, is probably a huge step up in their production because there's so many moving parts going on with the berserkers and soldiers and everybody, all the different fights and the visual effects going on with the Garuda and stuff. But yeah, I liked a lot of I liked how it wrapped up a lot of the story arcs, and I like how it brought the characters back together. I like how it teases more with the family line of Bo and her grandfather, and how that all interconnects in some way, and what it means for her, for power, how quickly she can turn kind of dark. And yeah, and so I liked overall the momentum, especially binging it. Of course, that momentum worked really well. So yeah, there's some technical issues here and there, especially in episode 20. But they were trying, and I kind of wish the Naga and the Garuda, when they fought, could have done a little bit more fighting. Like, remember the fight with the Ash and Bo when they're sword fighting?
Yeah,
that was amazing. And I
Yeah.
just felt like they could have done something a little bit more for that fight, because I felt like he went down really easy. And
Like bat, bite,
yeah,
and then
it's like,
down.
I tripped. Oh, well,
Like,
I'm
that
dead.
was
Just cut my head off.
Yeah, here you go. I guess he
exactly.
figured why prolong the inevitable, but you know.
Maybe he thought he was doomed anyway. So, but anyway, besides a few of those bits, I liked how they really swung for it and really tried big, and I liked how they tied in all those storylines together.
Okay. Carol.
I felt, for me, Truth and Consequences was that final setup. Like by the end of that, we kind of had everything in place, and it was ready for that 3-episode arc. I did watch all 3 of those today.
Oh yeah, because that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, because I was like
I did
finishing
too.
up. I'm
I'm
like, I
sitting
gotta
here like, which one was the finale? What happened to the finale? What happened to the other
yeah.
two?
And so the flow of it was terrific, almost movie-like, where it just seamlessly went, from one to the next thing. And the demarcation between episodes was no more than any demarcation between scenes, in terms of the action and the flow and everything. I liked in Lachlan's Gambit, I like how we really get the sense of where he was really at, that he really was fighting, trying to save his people. And he wasn't just being a creep like we thought he was in the very beginning. I like how Bo, Dyson gets that whole misinterpretation of what his wolf spirit's supposed to do, and Bo's not sure, so she lets him run with it, and it's wrong. And then she's like, no, it is me, and I have to do this. And she steps up and embraces that she is the champion, that she's going to do this. And now if she's going to do it, she's doing it her way, and here's our plan, and take it or leave it, but that's it. And if you're not going to take it, then get the heck out of Dodge.
Right.
So I really liked where she's like, she's not even forced into it, that it's there, and she just steps into it. She leans into it and says, that's it. And now, the moment where she says, this is no longer a democracy. And that's a great moment. That's a great moment. And the fact that they do all have to decide individually, are they willing to take that blood oath? Are they willing to have her blood in them so that she can have their strength? And so therefore I love the moment, because Vex, of course,
Does into it.
weeded his way out of it.
Vex.
Yeah.
And so when Lauren realizes it and just gets it in him, and you can see everybody kind of get that glow of, oh, here we go. Now we have the unified strength. Here it is. Now we've got it. And Bo has that extra. I'm really talking with my hands a lot tonight. Bo really has that, the rest of the group strength that she needs to get in there and get the venom in him. And I really loved, at the same time, we have this whole back scene thing, and it didn't detract. It's really hard sometimes when you have this intense storyline and things are building and there's fighting and they're coming down to this final conflict, and yet, oh, here we are with Trix a King.
Yeah.
But
And yeah, like 1,000 years ago, and he's actually
Right.
looks like he's wearing the
He looked so cute in that too. He looked very regal. But they really wove it in enough, like it was never long enough to break the momentum of the action-y part, yet it gave additional gravitas to what was happening.
Right.
His own confusion about, did I do the right thing for the wrong reasons, or vice versa? And in the end, we're really not sure, because did the Garuda show him what really happened? Or once again, is this some of the Garudas?
Right. Is he playing with him? Yeah.
Right. And we
Right,
never really know. And it's probably some of both, because that's how life is. So it really blended that all in so well that even in those moments, we were just as much on the edge of our seats as we were
They
the
did
moment.
do a good job of melding
Yeah,
in.
of where they're fighting and, oh my God, Kenzie's injured and, oh my gosh, Hale, cauterizes her wound with song, which really, if anybody said that to me, I'd be like, are you kidding me?
Yeah,
But when
for
you're
sure.
watching it happen, it was wonderful. I
It
loved it.
was. I bet, Kevin, you were a little worried the first time you saw that episode, weren't you? Sarah Rose,
Yeah.
what about you? How did you like the finale?
I like the finale. I definitely agree with Marks that there were some like technical issues. I was left disappointed by some of the deaths. Both Kiara's and the Ashes. I would have liked to see some more action, some more like, but at least Kiara, instead of like stepping out there, would have like had a sword raised or something like that. And the Ash just like, oh, I'm gonna bite you. Oh, I didn't bite you, so I'm just gonna stand here and smile at Trick while I die because that makes a lot of sense. Um, Overall, I liked it. I like that, you can start to see kind of where they're going with Bo, like especially like right at that end of the season where she looks into the mirror and she's looking at herself and like you can kind of see that like
The flashing eyes.
glimmer, like the dark side of Bo is coming out and like um
I was
I do
waiting to
like
see
that a
her make
lot.
a little grin at herself.
Right. Well, I mean, the she does kind of smirk. She kind of has that
Yeah.
evil smirk thing that she does. But I like the end. Um in some ways it felt very low budget to me. Some of the and I mean that's the essence of Lost Girl. I mean, it's not a highly expensive show to make. Um but at least as far as I'm aware, it wasn't. But I would have liked to see a little bit more development on the action front. But all in all, I was very satisfied with it. I definitely liked it better than like the season one finale because it wasn't like that like drop at the end. But yeah, I mean, season two being my favorite season, part of the reason is because you get that like satisfying, like everything comes together at the end and it's kind of all there for a purpose, like Bo, you reveal why her name is Bo. It's Isabeau for her grandmother, and you find out who Trick is and stuff like that, and that all kind of happens at the end. Like you finally things start making sense. So
Right, you're
that
thinking I've hung with it for these 2 seasons, and now I'm getting some answers. Yeah,
right, exactly.
Kevin, bring us home. Mhm.
Well, it's kind of very much two ends of the spectrum for me, and we've touched on it in some of the earlier conversations. The fact that over the last part of the season, we really get to see the whole found family team together, very
Right.
much them working together. That dynamic, the chance to do it, the idea of potential loss or sacrifice because of what ends up happening to some of the characters. And just like we've seen in Buffy, Winona Earp, other shows with smaller budgets, oftentimes your epic finale is very little more than just your main characters in peril. So it doesn't have to be grandiose to be enjoyed. But the Garuda's storyline for me kind of was a dud. Very honest. I mean,
Okay.
we don't really see him until like episode 20. It's the whole season. Yeah, Groot is bad. Groot is really bad. Okay, if you say so. I mean, there isn't much there. So it a little bumpy for me. But once they do bring the character in and what the actor brings to the role and the concern, it's kind of there, but it wasn't there all season. So, but then again, I think very much because they had 22 episodes out of the blue and had to kind of fill it. It was a little hard to do. But when we get our characters together, the core group, it all kinds of works. And as we said, there's some nice teases to Dark Bo a little bit towards the coming seasons. And also all of them being willing to really step up to try to save the group. So it's quite enjoyable. It's just for me a little bit of the rocky season as far as ups and downs.
Okay.
And when we see the Garuda, we've been hearing about it all along, like you said, and then we finally see him, and he kind of looks like a bad used car salesman or something. It's like,
Till he sprouts the wings. Otherwise
yeah,
it's like,
and then you get the flamey wings and the flamey sword, and
Yeah, I
then
mean-
you're like, oh, okay. this
Okay,
guy
now
is
we get it.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Well, and
out of the box, he's kind of like, what?
Yeah, when we first see him at the drive-in, he doesn't. He has kind of this. There's some kind of controlled tension about him, maybe, or I mean, he seems like he would not be somebody you'd want to run into like anywhere. Period. But he's not. We don't know anything about what his actual. What is his purpose and what abilities he has until the next episode when Trick is talking about him more. But the funny thing is that I think it's Chris Holden Reed who at Con did talk about him a couple of times about being impressed by the guy, just his in person. The guy's demeanor and stature, and apparently lots of tattoos. But anyway, I digress.
Well, I looked him up, and he looks a lot more intimidating than some of his other roles. He's like in the Mayans TV show as a filmmaker and stuff. So
Yeah.
it's kind of interesting.
And I think he carried it well when he
Oh
saw
yeah,
on
no, I
screen.
agree. Yeah.
But we only saw him for like you said, that drive-in scene was like the only time we saw him in the first 19 episodes. So it was just hard to be concerned about him for me as a viewer.
It was too abstract.
Yeah, too abstract, not even at least popping in here and there.
I guess maybe they only had enough in the budget for 3 episodes.
Well, that could have been too, Hey, again, it just, there are other more important or more enjoyable aspects to really take away from this season or the last end of it. But yeah, it's just bumpy for me.
And I think they could have used the Ash to bring him more into the story, or at least like that fear of him, because they make the Ash right before he dies, they have that tit for tat that they've seen each other before, and like they could have used that to develop not only the Ash's character more, but our fear of the Garuda more, if the Ash would have talked about the Garuda a little bit
bit
more
more.
when we
He
found out about it.
opening the box with the heads, like, here you go. See, it's scary. Look at all the heads.
Yeah, that's what happened to all my brothers here. We're like, okay, are they your brothers or your heads? Whatever, dude. I'm confused. But I before we go, I do want to thank everyone, not just you guys, you wonderful panelists, but anyone who has been watching. Renita, thank you as always. Anyone else who happens to be watching this during this time that we're recording, or anyone who watches it later on, we appreciate your support. Thank you very much. And we will be doing a season 3 discussion sometime at the end of February. Stay tuned to the Track Facebook page to find that out. And something else we have coming up in February is on the 14th. There will be an interview with author R.R. Verdi. So stay tuned for that. And Renita said that, well, before that, she said, great panel and thank you all. And thank you, Renita. We always enjoy interacting with you. And I do want to thank my wonderful panelists for taking the time out of their schedules to do this. And it's always a good time, and you never know what people might say. And they would probably say they never know what I might ask. So it works out okay. It works out fine. But thank you so much to all of our viewers live and later. And to all of you, you've been a great panel. Thank you so much, everyone. And we'll see you next month.
Bye all.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.